welcome back to another session brought to you by Accent Nominees. Your host for today is Tomi Ogunleye, and I'll be discussing crowdfunding in Nigeria, part 2, regulatory framework, because last week we discussed crowdfunding in Nigeria, types of crowdfunding, the pros and cons of crowdfunding, and the various types of crowdfunding platforms we have in Nigeria. So this week, I'll be discussing the regulatory framework of crowdfunding. Of course, we all know what crowdfunding is, but I will go back for people that were unable to join us last week. If you were unable to join us last week, I will urge you to watch our previous session where I spoke about crowdfunding part 1. So going into the session, crowdfunding has gained popularity in Nigeria in recent years as a means of raising funds for business projects, for business ventures, for initiatives. It is a way for entrepreneurs, social innovators, creative individuals to raise funds from a very large crowd. Most people donate any amount they have. So some of the platforms where people use to raise funds are, Niger Fund, Cowrywise. We all know these platforms. I don't need to list all of them, but you know what I mean. So most of these platforms are they offer reward-based crowdfunding, where backers receive incentives such as products. If you remember from last week, I mentioned types of crowdfunding, where I specifically mentioned reward-based crowdfunding, where the investor would invest in your business, and then in exchange for that investment, you give the investor maybe a product or a service or a golden ticket or a ticket to your VIP lounge or a book, maybe a book you're writing, depending on what you feel right, just an exchange of a product or services. So it was even argued, I'm sure you guys might not believe me, you can try to research, it was even argued that the Statute of Liberty was partly financed through crowdfunding in 1876. Try to check, but most people were arguing that the finances, the money used to complete the Statute of Liberty was through crowdfunding in 1876. Some of the reasons why people opt for crowdfunding in Nigeria is because it is faster. They feel like it is easier to raise large sum of money from large audience, and it also allows private companies to access the public market. Before the year 2021, there was no specific rules that regulate crowdfunding here in Nigeria. I'm sure you are wondering what happened to the CAMA, the Investment and Securities Act. This particular act, I know I told you that anything you want to do regarding companies has to do with Company and Other Matters Act 2020, but they have a particular provision that restricts crowdfunding in Nigeria. In 2021, the SEC rules, Securities and Exchange Commission rules, governing crowdfunding became effective in January 2021. The rationale behind it is to protect investors, basically investors' safety. So one of the reasons why the SEC rules, was established, became effective in January 2021, is that to protect investors, to help investors. When investors are protected, they will want to invest in your business. They have no reason to fear, or they have to take the risk. Most people say, I'm not sure I'm doing the right thing. What if? But if these rules are in place to safeguard everywhere, to protect you, the investors, even before the intermediaries start trying to facilitate crowdfunding events, there are processes they need to follow. If these things are in place, then of course your money is safe. Of course you are protected. Everything is safe. So the regulatory framework for crowdfunding in Nigeria is overseen by the Securities and Exchange Commission. The SEC rules apply to crowdfunding intermediaries that operate or provide or they maintain in Nigeria, or they are located outside of Nigeria, but their target audience or their targeted investors are here in Nigeria, or if they have any component of its portal in Nigeria, then it will be regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's SEC. So how do you set up a crowdfunding platform? I know the last time I spoke about it, most of you cannot wait because don't forget that crowdfunding is a way for you to, is one of the means for you to raise funds for your business, to get that idea, to bring it to life. So you guys cannot wait to get into this crowdfunding journey. But before you do that, we would like to tell you the regulating laws, what you should do, how you can set up the crowdfunding platforms. So before you set up a crowdfunding platform, you need to know that there are 3 major players involved in crowdfunding transactions, and they are the fundraiser, of course, the person seeking the fund, the business owner seeking the fund. The second major player we have is the investor, the person looking to invest in a business, in your idea, in your business plan or business project. And then the third major player is the crowdfunding intermediaries. I know you guys have been hearing me saying crowdfunding platforms. There are some people that actually facilitate this. You are seeking funds, you just feel like you need to go and create your own. No, you don't. There are platforms that you need to reach out to, platforms that already go through the qualification process. So a crowdfunding intermediary is an entity that facilitates transactions involving the offer or sale of securities through a crowdfunding platform portal. They are the owner of the portal, you are the fundraiser, and then of course we have the investor. That's why we have the three major role players in crowdfunding transactions. So to set up and operate a crowdfunding portal in Nigeria, the crowdfunding intermediary would have to obtain a license from SEC, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission. Also, if you're an entity seeking to operate as a licensed crowdfunding, know that you have to certify a minimum of 100 million share capital. You heard me, 100 million share capital. So companies have a specified share capital they need to fulfill in order to register their company, or in order to register the object of the company. Depending, most times your registration approval do not end with CAC, it ends with SEC, depending on the sector or the industry you want to go into. So moving forward, it is different from a crowdfunding portal. I said it. Crowdfunding portal is different from the intermediaries. So a crowdfunding portal, on the other hand, is the website, the portal, or the platform you use to facilitate interactions between you and the investor that is investing. And then what are the registration requirements for crowdfunding intermediaries? I said they are regulated by SEC. So just to protect the investors, protect the funds they'll be investing in your business. So corporate entities that wish to register with SEC as a crowdfunding intermediary are required to submit their application, submit the appropriate application with SEC. So in addition to submitting your application with SEC, there are other things you need to do, like your incorporation document your incorporation document as issued as the CAC. That's, you have to submit it. I told you, if you're looking for approval to register a crowdfunding intermediary, like you want to stand as a crowdfunding intermediary and you want to register your entity, your registration do not start and end with SEC. No, it starts with CAC and then it maybe proceeds and go forward to SEC. So as you are going to SEC, they would ask you for your incorporation documents that you got from the Corporate Affairs Commission, which is one of the requirements they're asking for. And then they need audited accounts, your audited accounts. So if you want to act as crowdfunding intermediary, they'll be needing your audited account. And then your profile, of course, then operation manual and business plan, information on crowdfunding system that you want to adopt, then the proposed brand name of your crowdfunding portal. What name do you want to use for your portal, which includes evidence of trademark registration. Of course, this has to be included. Then the domain name of any website through which your crowdfunding portal will be operated. You need to know which is it, www.go fund me, depending on what you want to use. So you have to have everything in order. You don't be like elter skelter, like you're all scattered, you don't know what to do. Then you want to go to, after registration, you want to move on to SEC. Make sure that all things are set to documents, legal wise, legal compliance. You've done it, and it will be advisable to to comply with these laws if you want to be a crowdfunding intermediary. So what are the criteria for approval of an application to be registered as a crowdfunding intermediary? So in determining whether your application would be approved, a crowdfunding, SEC is required to be satisfied that you'll be able to operate fair and transparent in your crowdfunding system. You need to be fair and transparent. No shady business. Let it all be seen. Even when they ask you to bring your accounting books, your financial books, all transactions should be clear. Then the principal officers of the, your principal officers, they have to be fit and proper. So the applicant has, you have to have a sufficient financial and human and other resources. You cannot, how you have something below the normal amount and you want to be a crowdfunding intermediary. Like, it doesn't work like that. You have to be able to meet up with the criteria. So I'm talking about the rules of the applicant. You have to fulfill these rules. The applicant has to fulfill these rules. And then in order to protect investor and public interest, management of conflict, the regulation and supervision of its users. That's the reason why you need to follow this. You need to comply with this, and that's why the laws are in place, not only to protect you but to protect the investor. And I'll keep saying this. So what are the activities? What activities are registered by the crowdfunding that are prohibited? Do not all activities. I'm sure you're saying, once registered as a crowdfunding intermediary, you can do this, you can do this, you can do. You cannot do this and this and this. So some of the object are actually, some objects are prohibited. Only the ones that they give you go ahead for is what you should carry out, is what you should do. So a registered crowdfunding intermediaries are prohibited from providing financial assistance to investors to invest in a fundraising offer being hosted on your platform. There's a fundraising event going on your platform and you are giving investors money to invest in a issuer. Like, it doesn't work like that. Or you are giving investors money to invest in a fundraiser. It doesn't work like that. Make sure that you don't cross the line of being a crowdfunding intermediary. It is prohibited. Do not do that. Then the other one is soliciting investment. Don't do that. Your work is just your work is to facilitate between the investor and the fundraiser. Then facilitating secondary trade for investment instruments issued under the platform, and then using any alternative websites or social media platforms or portals that are not registered with SEC. Only the portal that are registered with SEC can do this crowdfunding activities that you claim you want to do. I told you some of the requirement they need is you providing the domain names. So imagine the domain names you provided is different from what you're using to carry out your crowdfunding activities. It will even look shady. If you have any problem, then go through the SEC, lay out your complaint and see how they can help you. Then what are the penalties for failure to register with SEC? You're a crowdfunding intermediary, but you failed to register with SEC. The rules, SEC rules provide that crowdfunding intermediaries that fail to comply with provisions of the rules will be liable to a fine of nothing less than 100,000 and 5,000 for every day you continue to validate or violate this order, the rules. Then how can you raise funds? I've been talking about crowdfunding intermediaries. So how can you raise funds through the crowdfunding portal? So you can only raise funds through the portal if you comply with SEC requirements. Micro, small, medium enterprises must be eligible in order to raise funds. You need to be eligible. I know I said crowdfunding intermediaries need to be eligible. You also need to be eligible. You cannot just wake up one day and say, I want to seek funds through crowdfunding. It does not work like that. You need to do things the way they should. Make sure you're eligible. Make sure you follow the right protocol. So micro, small, medium enterprise needs to be eligible. And then for a micro, small, medium enterprises to be eligible, you need to be incorporated in Nigeria, and make sure you've operated in Nigeria for nothing less than 2 years, like not less than 2 years. And you can raise funds through crowdfunding intermediaries. So it allows all categories of investors to participate, but they are subjected to limits. All categories of investors can participate, but they are subjected to limits. And then there's also fundraising limits. And the maximum for a micro enterprise that you can raise if you're a micro enterprise is 50 million naira yearly. You cannot go beyond that. So, and then the maximum limit for a small enterprise is 70 million naira. The maximum limit for a medium enterprise that it can raise yearly is 100 million naira. However, this fundraising limit, the 100 million, 50 million, 70 million, does not apply to commodities investment platforms, the CIPs. The CIPs connect investors to specific agricultural or commodity projects for the purpose of sponsoring such projects in exchange for a return, agricultural commodities. According to the guidelines, crowdfunding portals must be registered with SEC, and the regulatory body has mandated certain disclosure requirements. You need to disclose all information, the price and the nature of the securities you want to offer, and then risk that will be associated with the investment. We know it's not easy seeking donation, people that want to invest in your company. It's not easy, but you need to disclose the risk. Most people, there was a time I spoke about LP and LFP where I said I don't want to take risk, but some people are willing to take risk, and somebody replied me that what's the risk? Most people are willing to take risk. You might feel like I can't do it though. There are other investors that are willing. In fact, the bigger the risk, the bigger their profits. Some of them, believe that the bigger the risk, the bigger the profit. So the identity of the crowdfunding issuer, you have to disclose some requirements. So investors are also required to provide certain personal information, including their net worth, to ensure that they meet eligibility criteria for investing in crowdfunding campaigns. Your net worth can be 1 billion, and you say you want to invest 2 billion. Like how? How? But I'm sure you understand what I mean. So your net worth, your information, you have to submit. As an investor, you need to submit these details. So the maximum amount an issuer can raise through crowdfunding is set at 100 million naira per year, which I said. So the fundraiser is required to submit some documents such as your key information. You need to submit information. They need to know your address, your email address, next of kin, then use of proceeds. What do you want to use the proceeds for? Nature of your existing business. What business do you do? What is the nature of the business that you do? Then business plan, details of the offer, and then the return on investment. Okay, if I offer you so and so, then I'll be giving you, okay, if I'm offering you so, how much you'll be giving me a return? Or if I'm being offered 10 million naira, how much will I be giving you? How much shares will I be giving you in my company? What is the return on investment I'll be giving you? The interest, profit sharing structure. Your financial information, such as your interim report, your accounts, a schedule of debts. I'm sure you're wondering what these requirements are too much. It is not easy sourcing a large sum of money from the public and then you want to do business. Ordinary one person to trust you and invest in you, and even to buy something from you online, most people tell you, are you sure you are legit? Just then imagine one person is doubting you. Imagine now 100 people. How, these laws have to be in place for them to feel safe that okay, you're not going anywhere. Even if the risk last everything is scatter. There are certain things you need to do and how you need to, and then you know that of course you saw this the ending profit. Of course you make profit, but there are days that you will not be making profit, and then how do you scale through with the fundraiser or the issuer himself? So 2-year audited financial statement. Now I said your entity has to be in existence for nothing less than 2 years, and then they have to be in operation for 2 years. So your 2 years financial audited statement, you have to submit that. So the rules is actually aimed at encouraging more participation by Nigerians in the country economic growth, as well as providing an alternative means of raising capital. Most people, the only means they know of raising funds is either to ask somebody to borrow them or they go to the bank. And most people are even scared of going to the bank or going to financial institutions. They feel like the interest rate is over the top. If you've not watched the previous session, please watch it, because I mentioned why people opt for crowdfunding, which raising of funds is one of the reasons why people opt for crowdfunding, because the interest rate is low. Most times you don't need to pay back. There are donation-based crowdfunding. You don't need to pay back. Why there are some that reward-based, like I said, product or service. Why there are some crowdfunding that you don't need to give them anything. The only thing you need to give them is part ownership in your company, maybe 10%, 20%, anything, depending on the agreement. So overall, the SEC or SECRUS has designed the regulatory framework to protect both investors and issuers, while also promoting the growth of crowdfunding in Nigeria. So I hope you're able to enjoy this session, and then you will tune in for next session. Thank you for joining me today.